Welcome to today's Masterclass. This is your step-by-step guide to becoming a cannabis nurse with the Cannabis Nurses Network. We are so happy to have you here today. My name is Starlight, and I'm one of the membership creators who works with Heather, who's the founder of Cannabis Nurses Network. Today, I am so delighted to introduce you to her. She is going to be sharing some of the amazing parts of her journey and how she brought Cannabis Nurses Network to be. And then we're going to dive into the exact steps that you can take to become a cannabis nurse or to become a cannabis nurse for yourself. I'm delighted to be here today to help Heather out with this presentation, and we are going to get started. You are in the right place if you've been wondering if cannabis nursing is for you. Spoiler alert, it probably is. If you felt unsure about how you can get started, maybe you're in a state where cannabis legalization hasn't fully been accepted yet, this is still a good place for you to be. If you felt alone on your cannabis nursing journey, you are definitely in the right place. We are all about connecting in community here. If you've been looking for opportunities to advance professionally, this is the right place. Maybe you've gotten burned out over the last couple of years and been feeling disillusioned with the medical establishment and are looking for new opportunities. Boy, you are in the right spot today. Thank you so much for joining us. Our promise to you during this 1-hour masterclass is that we are going to share every insight that we have. We're not going to hold anything back. We're going to give you the exact steps that you need on your journey. We're going to share the exact resources that we share with our nurses. And we're going to make sure at the very end that you have dedicated time for Q&A. So if you stay all the way to the end, make notes of your questions, and we'll have a time for you to be able to ask your questions with Heather and I to respond. Okay? Now, that's our promise to you. In return, we ask of you that you take plenty of notes, right? Take a moment now to close any browsers, to put your phone away, get some paper out, grab a pen, because we are going to be going fast and we're going to need your full attention. Make sure to write down any questions that you have so that you can bring them up during our Q&A session at the end. The best way that you can get the most value out of this masterclass is mute your phone so that you can pay attention, take notes, and close any tabs or anything in case your computer decides to run slow or anything like that, because we are going to be clicking and we don't want you to miss anything. During this masterclass, you are going to learn the 4 toughest mistakes that we've learned in cannabis nursing. These are no joke. Heather has been in the cannabis nursing industry for many years, and we've watched these mistakes happen over and over again. We're also going to touch on the NCSBN guidelines for medical cannabis patient care and how you can meet them. A lot of nurses don't realize that there are these standard guidelines for patient care, and this is your opportunity to get that information and see where you can level up professionally. We're also going to talk about how you can accelerate your cannabis nursing journey, whether you're just getting started or you've already begun. I am so delighted now to hand this off to Heather, the founder of Cannabis Nurses Network. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for getting us started off, Starlight. I am so thrilled to be here with all of these nurses that are looking forward to, learning these step-by-step actions that they can take to becoming a cannabis nurse. And it represents a snapshot in time on my cannabis nurse journey. The plant in this image was grown by a patient, the woman with the red nails, and her name is Nikki. The other hand on the other side is mine. The picture itself was taken by another cannabis patient. His name was Eric. And this day was very special because it was a beautiful example of healing in action. When I met Nikki in 2010, she had just received her medical cannabis patient card and was seeking safe access to quality medicine through the cannabis program in New Mexico. Nikki suffered from seizures, pain, diabetes, and debilitating post-traumatic stress disorder. And she suffered all of this as a result of a horrific motor vehicle accident where she and her husband were hit head on by a drunk driver, and she was 9 months pregnant. Now, her baby survived, but her recovery was slow and long and brutal. And I watched cannabis turn her life around. She discovered her green thumb and began growing her own Cultivating her own medicine brought her joy and aided in her healing process. Now, on this day, Eric, the photographer, had picked up his camera for the first time in many years. And in his younger years, Eric had lived a very full and adrenaline-filled life. He had multiple bone breaks, traumatic brain injuries, and other injuries that led him to a life of chronic pain. And like most patients, many patients, this also led him to a life of opioid dependency and a loss of the quality of life that he wished that he had as a father and husband. Now, cannabis helped Eric wean off of his pain meds, and it increased his quality of life and allowed him to engage in activities that once brought him joy. One of those activities was photography. So this image to me represents healing through plant medicine, a supportive community, and intentional cannabis nursing. These two patients called, and I answered. Here, Cannabis Nursing calling you. And the question is, will you answer? How many lives will you touch by following this calling? Hello there. My name is Heather Manus, and I like to say that I am a by nature and a nurse by choice. Have been a cannabis nurse now for over 12 years. And the way that I got started was unique. Each of your stories that brought you here will be unique. But I had some wonderful opportunities because I seized those opportunities when I saw them. Now, in 2007, New Mexico patients were able to access cannabis because it had been legalized. By 2009, we had licenses that were being awarded, and dispensaries and cultivations were happening. And I was part of that. Those applications that was awarded. And I had the opportunity to be the medical board member because in New Mexico, we were the first state to require a medical board member. And we were also the first state, and believe the only state, to actually recognize RNs as in that role. And so this gave me a wonderful opportunity to learn every aspect of the cannabis industry and to have real hands-on experience with patients, helping them to navigate their cannabis nurse journey. Now, through these years of working and doing these things, I also was positioned as an industry thought leader. And so as a nurse with my ethics, I was able to continually be out there asking for better quality of medicine and advocating for patients. I started to produce products. And so I was into the product development because I wanted the best products I'm caring for. And I've also been a long time advocate for patients who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. The work I did in Arizona led to PTSD being added as a qualifying condition back in 2013, 14. And after that, we saw a huge spread of states that started to add that as a qualifying condition. I'm very proud of that work in my advocacy. So, but also when I think about my cannabis nurse journey, I think about the many gifts and benefits that it's brought into my life. And it has made my heart expand. And I have gained as much love as I've been able to give. But the one thing that I've really learned is how powerful of a healing tool cannabis is to nurses in our toolbox. And I have found that having cannabis in my nursing toolkit has made nursing so much more enjoyable and a whole lot easier. I've gained a lot of personal satisfaction. And again, my community has grown. I have deep, wonderful relationships with people that have been ongoing for years. And I know these are some of the gifts and benefits that you can gain through your cannabis nursing journey as well. So we want to cover 9 main points today. And we're going to start with the 4 massive mistakes to avoid. And hopefully, if you're here listening to this today, you've already avoided these mistakes. But if not, we want to lay those out there for you. Mistake number 1, ignorance of the NCSBN guidelines. So I will ask you now, do you know that the National Council, State Boards of Nursing have published national nursing guidelines for the care of medical marijuana patients. They did that in July of 2018 in a special, the official journal of the National Council, State Boards of Nursing. Now you can purchase this little booklet. It's wonderful to have, or you can actually just go straight to the ncsbn.gov.com website, and you can get the PDF of this. These guidelines were revolutionary for us in 2018 when they came out, and so important for you to understand these things. Now, just quickly, I want to go to the first page, well, the second page, and this is what this document will cover. So it's the current legislation, which is already outdated because the legislation is moving so fast. So the current legislation as of 2018, a scientific literature review and nursing implications. They also cover in these guidelines nursing care for a patient using medical marijuana. They cover medical marijuana education in pre-licensure nursing programs. The NCSBN is the entity that writes our NCLEX. And they want to start putting questions on the NCLEX about the endocannabinoid system and cannabinoid therapeutics. They cannot do that until we start teaching this in nursing school. So these guidelines are a call to action for nursing schools to begin delivering this information and offering it through the traditional schooling. Also, medical marijuana education for advanced practicing registered nurses in their programs. So they want APRNs to start to have this information too. And then also there's a whole segment in here about advanced practicing registered nurses certifying a medical marijuana qualifying condition. Because did you know in some states, nurse practitioners can actually write recommendations for the state medical marijuana program. And so these guidelines are essential for us to know, be familiar with, and understand. And I encourage each of you to go check those out. So what does it look like when if we're making these mistakes and we're not acknowledging the NCSBN guidelines, what does this look like? And a lot of times it looks like fear of talking about cannabis, fear of bringing it up in staff meetings. It has to do, it looks like misunderstanding, just not having a full picture of what is really going on with the endocannabinoid system and cannabinoid therapeutics. And then the worst one, I think, is judgment. It looks like judgment that you're saying, oh, these patients are potheads and they're just wanting to get high. And one of the things that is stated in these guidelines is that a nurse has an ethical responsibility to care for a patient without judgment, and specifically a medical cannabis patient. So why are people making these mistakes? A lot of times it's because of the legal status. So you just have in your mind that the legal status is illegal and we can't talk about cannabis. That's not true. These guidelines tell us that. Stigma, we've all kind of been raised up to know that cannabis is bad and that it, knocks out your motivation or your memory and it makes you dumb. So the stigma is a huge piece of this mistake. And again, that formal education. A lot of times, if we weren't taught this in nursing school, we don't really know that it's a valid thing. But as nurses, we know that our evidence-based practice is developed through this continued research, and cannabis research is one of the fastest moving areas of research today. And so we really need to add that in to our formal education and our continued education to build our evidence-based practices. So what does it cost us if we ignore these guidelines? I think the most important for me is that our patients are suffering if we can't have these conversations, or they're self-medicating and not sharing with us their successes or the things that they're experiencing. Another cost is that healthcare continues to use outdated policies and practices. it's time to start updating and to really integrate these guidelines into the workplace. And it makes your job harder as a nurse if you can't speak freely with a patient about a plant medicine that's helping them and to help guide them along that journey to have even greater successes. So what happens when you stop making the mistake of ignoring the NCSBN guidelines? What I found is that therapeutic relationships are built, that patients trust you. I am telling you now, nurses, that patients want to talk to us about their cannabis use, or they're curious about starting CBD or implementing hemp products into their life. But they will sniff out our judgment a mile away. And so when a patient starts to experience that, they'll usually do one of two things. A patient will either clam up and they'll just stop talking to us about it. They'll never bring it up again, or they will get angry. And one thing I will tell you is that a lot of patients know more about cannabis therapeutics than nurses and doctors. And so if they get angry and they start telling you what they know that you don't know, that can lead to this, downgrading of that therapeutic relationship. And one of the other things that I've seen since implementing these guidelines and acknowledging them is greater success and health outcomes for our patients. And I will tell you right now, if you're afraid to bring up this conversation at work because, I don't want to be judged as that cannabis nurse or a weed nurse, bring these guidelines, okay? These were developed by high-level nurses and lawyers who have put this document together for us. Bring this to your staff meetings. Bring it to the educator of your facility and say, hey, I think this is something we should be talking about because our patients are using cannabis with or without medical advice, and we need to get on board here. So that was mistake number one. Mistake number two is this one, waiting for an official cannabis nurse certification. So what do I mean by that? Cannabis nursing, currently as it stands today, is not a recognized specialty in nursing. But it doesn't mean that we're not working on it, right? So we have been working on creating cannabis nursing as a specialty for the last decade. We are still in that process. But what does it look like if you're going to just continue waiting for that? That would have left me waiting much longer than I would have wanted to, and I wouldn't have helped as many people. So it looks like you're wasting your time if you're waiting for that. We actually need you on the inside helping to drive it. So don't waste your time waiting around for things to be official. It's getting there. You're missing opportunities. You're missing opportunities to help patients, to change things in your facilities, to build a business of your own. And you're also withholding your talents. If you're waiting for the specialty, the talents that you have now and you could be developing, they're being withheld. And please don't do that. Share your talents with the world. Why are people waiting? Again, it's that uncertainty. I don't know. Is it a real thing? Can I make money at it? The knowledge gaps. I don't really know that much about cannabis nursing. Again, we go back to number one. Get into this book and you're going to understand a lot of, through those guidelines. And then a lack of confidence. Well, I haven't ever done it before. I don't know if I can do it. And that's a terrible reason to wait, y'all. So please don't try your best to avoid this mistake and pitfall of waiting till it becomes a nationally recognized specialty. The cost of waiting is that your talents are not being developed and utilized. I kind of already alluded to that nurse-owned businesses are not being created. Nurses are the most trusted profession. I want trusted people running businesses. Nurses, the pathway is wide open in the cannabis industry for you to run your own nurse-owned business. And the cost of waiting is that it's going to take longer to gain recognition. We need nurses doing this. The national nursing guidelines, they came out in response to all the work that we were doing. the the nursing realm said, oh no, there's these nurses doing this thing. What is it all about? And they actually produced these guidelines in response. So we need this recognition to be had, and we need your help to get it there. So what happens when you seize this opportunity and don't wait, right? You can become a thought leader in an emerging specialty. You're on the ground floor. Although we've done a lot of groundwork over the last, decade plus, this is still an emerging specialty, and there's a space for you to be a thought leader here. You can establish your niche because there is not a clear carved out, this is what a cannabis nurse does. You get to use your talents and your passions and all of that makes you excited, your interest, to carve out a niche for yourself. And when you seize these opportunities, you are helping to pave the way for the future of cannabis nursing. We need you at the table. Pull up a chair. So mistake number 3 is trying to do it on your own. Now, when I think about this, I think all the way back to those many years ago when I was just doing what I was doing, and I felt kind of a little bit nervous about it, but it had to be done. And so I did that work. I truly felt alone. And when I found a network of other nurses, although it was a small network, it was so important for me to be able to move my work further because now I had people who were supporting me. So don't try to do this on your own, because this is what it's going to look like if you do. You're going to run into those common mistakes that Starlight talked about that we keep seeing nurses do over and over again. You're going to dip into these avoidable pitfalls that if you just had a network around you to go, don't do that. It's not going to work. We already tried it. That you can just save yourself some time and effort. It's going to look like that you have a lack of support if you try to do it on your own. And this isn't 13 years ago. This is today. And there is a large network of nurses that are here, willing, ready, and wanting to help support you in your journey. I think the worst part about going it alone, and this is one of the mistakes I've seen over and over again, is that nurses go, I want to do this thing. And so they get in their little cave and they do their thing. And what they come out of the cave with is a reinvented wheel. And we go, yeah, that's great, honey, but so-and-so did that 4 or 5 years ago, and you could have just built upon that. So we really don't want you to have to waste your energy and your resources reinventing a wheel that someone else has already created. Let's take those wheels and build a Corvette or, build something amazing together. And why do people make these mistakes? A lot of it has to do with ego of I can do it myself, or fear of I don't want to ask for help. That lack of a support system that, maybe you don't want people to know what you're doing. And so you are alone and you figure you'll just keep going it alone. The other mistake is that you want to go fast. And the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, we go together. So let's go far together. And what is the cost of going it alone? It's a loss of resources. Again, if you're spending your time, energy, money into reinventing a wheel that so-and-so already invented, then you're wasting your resources. You have an increased risk of failure and no safety net if you're out there all by yourself. And one of the things that I see commonly is that frustration or that stagnation that happens because you just don't have your team of people, your network rooting you on, pulling you up, uplifting you, moving you, and elevating you to the next level. So what can happen when you get help? You're going to have more resources. You're going to avoid those pitfalls. You're going to feel supported and empowered. You're going to have shared successes with all of us as colleagues and cohorts. And we'll also share some failures, but at least we can do that together and cry on each other's shoulders and not be alone with those tears. We're moving on to the 4th mistake. And this one I think is really important. It's the bright, shiny objects syndrome. Warning, easily distracted by bright, shiny objects. this can be a problem. What does it look like? It looks like endless distractions. It is so exciting to be part of the cannabis industry, and there's a lot going on. And it's very easy to get distracted by all the bright, shiny things. But when you're doing that, you're not putting your focus into what you can be doing. It can lead to poor decision making. Okay, don't get so excited that you quit your day job yet. Cannabis nursing is difficult, and it can be hard sometimes to make a nurse's living as a cannabis nurse because there are not those set cannabis nursing roles that are getting paid the way that we would as normal nurses. So use cannabis nursing right where you are. If you are working in facilities, implement this knowledge. Do what you can do to try to change things, to be that change maker. It can also look like you have a lack of follow through or follow up or implementation, and nobody wants to do that, right? We don't want to be distracted. We truly want to be focused and be intentional with the work that we're doing. So I kind of alluded to, I got ahead of myself, why people get distracted. And part of that is the excitement of this industry and that sense of urgency. I got to get out there. I got to get going. The discovery of new information. You're learning all of these things. And so you say, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. The truth is you can, but a desire to do it all, I've found, leads you to a road of doing very little. So we don't want you to get distracted, although we do want you to get excited and to gather information as quickly as you can. So the cost of these continued distractions is the financial difficulty. If you're not focused in on exactly why you're doing what you're doing, who it is that you're wanting to help, and how you're going to make that happen, you can run into some financial difficulties. Again, do not quit your day job until your cannabis nursing hobby or side hustle is making you enough money that you can comfortably do so. I did not leave my home health nursing job until I had so many cannabis patients I was caring for that I ran out of hours in the day to do both jobs, and I had to make a choice. The cost of continued distractions, again, can be frustration and disappointment. Are you starting to see a trend here of we don't want you to feel frustrated and disappointed, and there are ways to avoid those pitfalls. And then I think one of the really important ones for us as nurses is that if you're constantly being distracted and you're not following through and implementing, that can potentially damage your reputation as an ethical, trusted professional who we do get things done. That's what nurses do. So don't get so distracted that you seem a little flaky. So what happens when you do focus and you see those distractions, but you go, oh, that's nice. That's interesting. Very cool. But this is my thing. What happens when you focus in is that you find your niche and you will see results. You'll start making informed, intentional decisions that are going to lead you as a cannabis nurse to do what it is that you are trying to do. And you will use your resources in a much more productive manner. This is how cannabis nursing will lead and usher in a revolution in healthcare. So we want you to avoid those 4 things. And I told you we were going to talk about 9 things. So now we're going to move into the 5-step framework to becoming a medical cannabis nurse. I hope you're enjoying this masterclass and gaining something out of it. I know some of you have already begun your journey. And so a lot of this may be repetitive for you or a refresher, but hopefully there'll be some nuggets for you as well. So step 1 on becoming a cannabis nurse. When people ask me, what is a cannabis nurse? My answer is always the same. It is a nurse who understands the endocannabinoid system. Now, I, like you, did not learn about the endocannabinoid system in nursing school. And I have come to learn how important this system is. Why is the endocannabinoid system so important? Number 1, it is our 12th human body system. We all got ripped off in nursing school because they only taught us 11 body systems. Now we know there's 12. And this can create a little bit of irritation within us as nurses because we like to have all the information. So the endocannabinoid system is the 12th human body system. It is the largest receptor signaling system in the human body, responsible for homeostasis between all of our other body systems. If we can work with and care for the endocannabinoid system, we will begin to see our patients heal in ways that we could not do with other types of medication. The benefits are that we are addressing the root causes of disease. We are seeing patient empowerment and successful outcomes. Part of what we do as cannabis nurses is not just say, take 3 buds and call me in the morning, right? We're actually teaching our patients about their endocannabinoid system. We're talking to them about ways to keep their system healthy, either through phytocannabinoids like cannabis or through other alternative or complementary therapies that research is showing supports the endocannabinoid system and helps it to stay healthy. Also, we need to look at that evidence-based practice, right? The science is there, the research is there. Although it's not all being done in the United States, there are countries around the world, specifically Israel, that are doing some amazing research, and we need to tap into that knowledge for our own evidence-based practice. So why are nurses falling short here? Again, formal education. It's not taught in nursing schools. The NCLEX writers, NCSBN, they are calling for us to start teaching this in nursing school. If you are a nurse who is an educator in university setting, start implementing this knowledge into your courses because it's important. We're falling short because of that plant stigma, which is keeping people from wanting to learn about the science of the endocannabinoid system. And it just makes me shake my head, but I see it all the time. When you try to talk to a medical provider or someone about the endocannabinoid system, that stigma piece of like, well, you're just talking about weed, it stops them from actually seeing this research, looking at the importance of this system and letting it sink in. I've said many, many times, and if you know me, you've heard me say it before, when I learned about the endocannabinoid system, it helped everything else make sense to me. Another reason that nurses fall short is this fear of change, the fear of judgment or additional work. And maybe not the nurses so much, but the administrators at facilities, they don't want to implement these new changes and policies. It's going to be more work. It's things that they have to do, but that's okay because healthcare as we know it today has fallen short. And if simple implementation of endocannabinoid system information and cannabinoid therapeutics can help our job, let's get on that. So step number 2 to becoming a cannabis nurse. This is essential and they discuss it in the National Nursing Guidelines. Learn your local and state laws. You as a nurse need to understand where you are practicing and how you can do things legally and safely. And why is this important? It's important because we all know as nurses, CYA, right? We have to protect ourselves. And if we don't know the laws, we could potentially be at risk of doing something that isn't quite right because the regulations say something different. So you've got to know about that. It's important because as nurses, we are valuable, strong, and potent patient advocates. And patients need us today more than ever to be aware of this information. And the last one here, because we need to keep our patients safe. And then the last one here is get involved. If you know the laws and you know how to get involved, I knew that my state had just recently passed medical cannabis. I was paying attention to that. So when I saw patients that were using cannabis, I started helping them get on the program. I would just give them the information and they did what they did. But as I did that, It also opened up my eyes to say, hey, this licensing thing is a pathway for me. Nurses can serve as medical directors. So having knowledge of these laws is going to help you know how and where to get involved in your community. The benefits of involvement are that nurses are change agents. We are the most trusted profession. Patients need us to be part of this conversation. The legal framework for your business. If you want to be a nurse in the industry, you've got to be aware of what those legal parameters are so that you can safely set up your business and work within that so that your license will not be in jeopardy and so forth. The other benefit of this involvement is a personal freedom to choose what kind of work you do, to choose what type of patients you're working with, to choose what kind of medicine you integrate into your practice. And why do nurses skip this step? What are some of the reasons why nurses maybe aren't looking at that laws or aren't looking at the legislative process or looking at the laws as they're coming down? And part of it is because nurses either have a political or have a knowledge gap with the political or legislative process. They're intimidated. They hate politics. They don't want to deal with government, or they're just not sure where to get this information. But I can tell you, as an advocate, our voices as nurses is invaluable. And just stepping in there, I don't like politics. I don't like lawmaking, but you know what? The work that I was able to do and advocate for patients, we now have SB 311, Ryan's Law, sitting on the desk of Governor Newsom's office right now in California. This law will mandate hospitals and all healthcare facilities to allow patients to use cannabis as inpatients in those facilities. And so this work that we're doing, although it's uncomfortable, we don't really like to do it, it's frustrating, it's scary, it's important. It's important for our patients. So step 3, join advocacy groups. So once you know about the laws, that leads you to be more of an advocate. And so you want to get involved with those groups that are doing the good work. So why is this important? Because there's strength in numbers. When you join groups that can move things forward and they know what they're doing, there is the strength in numbers. You're not alone anymore and you can be a voice. It's also kind of protective when you are in a group of others. Patients and nurses need that protection, and you need to learn how to be an effective advocate, why you're being an effective advocate, and what you can do to really leverage change and make things happen. The benefits of advocacy is that you are giving a voice to the voiceless. For me, that was always my biggest why. I knew that there were people who were sick that could not be at the state capitol fighting for themselves. I needed to be there because my voice was loud, my voice was powerful, and I came from a place of love and compassion. And that is what these government officials and lawmakers really do listen to. The benefit of being a participant in legislative changes. I'm very proud of the work that Cannabis Nurses Network has done over the last 3 years to help get Ryan's Law on the books. We know that as soon as it gets passed here in California, that we are poised to take this legislation to Washington and Oregon so that patients in those states will be ready to be able to utilize cannabis safely in hospitals and healthcare facilities. And once we get this starting to spread, like everything else, it'll go all the way across the country. Every patient in the United States should have the option to use their cannabis when they are inpatient in the hospital because they're ill. Where we are doing a lot of these things that can help to provide safety for our communities and greater freedom for our patients, for the plant, and for us as nurses to be protected, not only as healthcare providers, but also nurses who are choosing to consume cannabis for our own health benefits. We must advocate for ourselves because no one else is doing it. And why might nurses skip this advocacy thing? Well, there could be a level of fear or uncertainty. Again, this tends to be a running theme. Or you haven't experienced the importance of advocacy yet. Or you may just not have the time or the patience required to do it. And so that's why getting to be part of these groups, you can put in the time when you can. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to, but you can be there for important things. So joining up with advocacy groups, not just for medical cannabis advocacy, joining your state nursing association and getting involved with their political action committees is really, really important work that we as nurses have a wonderful leg up to be great voices in that arena. So step 4, this is the next guide to really becoming a cannabis nurse, is that you find your community. So we have covered understanding the endocannabinoid system, knowing the laws in your area, becoming a strong advocate. And now we're talking about step 4, which is finding your community. Why is community essential? Well, again, there's strength in numbers. Your community needs you, and we can leverage resources for a greater impact. When we are working together, we can get so much further, and ideas will come up we couldn't have thought of on our own. Energy will show up from people that can do things that maybe we thought about but couldn't get done. So the benefits of community are endless, endless, endless. And why do most people skip the community piece? Maybe they have a little bit of insecurity. Oh, I'm shy. I don't know. Will they like me? Maybe it's a lack of information. You don't know that these networks exist. Maybe you have a fear of rejection or failure, or you're still looking for that right community that fits for you. So as we move into our 5th step, after we found our community and we've learned the laws and we understand the endocannabinoid system and we're familiarized with the NCSBN guidelines, now it's time to share your knowledge. Why is knowledge sharing essential? Because knowledge is power. You hold knowledge that others don't have. And because of that, it is imperative that you share that information with them in a way that can be digested, in a way that's non-threatening to them. We as nurses, we have our ethics, right? We are trusted and we practice from an evidence-based practice. So sharing this knowledge that we are gathering and that we are implementing to make our practices even better, it's so important that we share this information that we know, and don't do like I did where I hid it for so long. Share this information with those that you're working with so that we can make a greater impact. You sharing this information in a scientific, sensible way will help to break the stigma. And we have to break the stigma about the plant so that the science of the endocannabinoid system can be digested and implemented. So the benefits of sharing your knowledge is that your facilities and your colleagues will be aware of this information. You can build your network bigger, that your patient rights and protections can be made, that your policies will be up to date, and that health outcomes will be increased because now we're using medicine that works. And why is it that most nurses don't share? It's that fear of judgment, of losing your job or losing respect or your license. They used to say that being a cannabis nurse was career suicide. I never believed that, and it's definitely not the case. There are some risks, and so you have to be smart, and that's why having your network and your knowledge base is important. But also, the reason nurses don't share is because they have a perceived lack of opportunity or scarcity. I don't really know where I can share this, or I don't know. And you just don't know where to start, perhaps. And so we want to help you get started. So our takeaways were the 4 mistakes are the ignorance of the NCSBN guidelines. You're no longer going to do that. Waiting for official specialty certification. You're not going to do that. You're going to get started. Going it alone, you don't have to, because we're here. There's a large network of nurses ready to help you. You're not going to get distracted by bright, shiny things. You'll take note of them. You'll be aware, but you're going to stay focused. And the 5 framework pieces were understand the endocannabinoid system, learn the laws, join advocacy groups, find your community, and share your knowledge. And if you take nothing else away from this presentation, please take this one thing away. That cannabis nursing is a calling and a journey. And you can be a cannabis nurse exactly where you are. And I am so thrilled that where you are today is right here with us. And I cannot wait to help you be empowered as you move forward through your cannabis nurse journey.
Thank you so much, Heather. So one thing Heather has done in her amazing time as a cannabis nurse is actually help develop this framework and system to empower you so that you can actually follow this calling as a cannabis nurse. And we've outlined some of that framework today, but more importantly, we work together to create a community with the education and support that you need so that you can accelerate your professional journey in cannabis nursing. I'm going to take a few moments to talk about that a little bit today, because the big question at this stage is, how can you apply this to your journey and become the cannabis nurse that your patients and community needs? You have 2 options. You can waste a lot of time and effort trying to figure it out on your own. And we talked about how going it alone is a terrible thing to do, but it is an option. Or the alternative, you can fast track your results with the Cannabis Nurses Network and our annual membership, right? I've seen some of your questions here down below. We're going to answer these in the live Q&A, but I want to take a moment to kind of elaborate on what's inside the community, right? We are really serious about equipping our cannabis nurses to be able to meet those NCSBN guidelines first and foremost, and then to bolster the other areas that you need in order to become a cannabis nurse. So first, we are, and I don't want to brag, but I'm gonna, one of the leading cannabis nurse educators when it comes to the endocannabinoid system. We offer the Introduction to Medical Cannabis. We have a Rooted in Science, Nourished by Nature program, which is 10 hours of education. We offer webinars and in-person sessions. These are things that are included out of the gate with annual membership. We also are serious about advocacy, and so we work on national initiatives and collaboration. We have a private group inside of our membership where some of our really more active advocates are working on national programs where we're getting consensus across nursing organizations. We're making statements. We're setting things up for a future of cannabis nursing with the advocacy efforts that take place inside of our organization. We're also partnered with Cannabis Nurses of Color because diversity and inclusivity is essential and a serious part of how we do business. We are also focused on the future of psychedelic legislation, right? Cannabis medication or cannabis nursing leads very quickly into other alternative medicines that are on the horizon, and that's something that we're taking into account. And in the process, we're able to leverage the power of numbers so that we can get letters sent in to local legislation where we can make an impact. We offer templates that you can use in your local advocacy and opportunities there. We also focus very heavily on providing opportunities and recognition for cannabis nurses. Nurses do incredible work in the world, and sometimes it's not nearly as recognized as it should be. And that's a founding principle of our mission, is recognizing the incredible efforts of the people who are doing amazing work in the world. In our community, we have and are proud to call members national educators, authors in the industry space, business owners, networking, and we also have annual awards where we honor the members inside of our community that we're very intimately in touch with, watching them create amazing things in the world. We are also focused very heavily on professional development. Heather mentioned earlier about a speakers bureau. For the members who want to take their business and their exposure to the next level and become thought leaders and educators, we offer the ability for you to join our Speakers Bureau. We give you professional training on how to really capture your message, convey it to an audience. We put you on a stage, and then we make you a part of the Cannabis Nurses Network database, Speakers Bureau database, where people can come and when a conference manager is looking for vetted cannabis nurses to speak at their conference, they come and they request speakers from the Cannabis Nurses Network Speakers Bureau, right? We also have inside of the membership what we call our clinical brain trust. When you're starting out in cannabis nursing, it can feel a little squeeby as you begin to get ready to really put into practice those practical applications of cannabis medicine. And we have the experts in our network for you to ask questions where if you've got a patient issue, if you have something that's troubling you, just like you would have a clinical advisor in your everyday role, we have those people available for you inside of the network so that you can get the help that you need. And again, don't feel like you're having to do it all by yourself. We also have platform partnerships to help people build their professional development as well. This looks like a couple different things. We've got tools that we offer as partners who create amazing research or cannabis nursing tools, partner with us to offer those tools to our members. But let's say, for example, you really want to take this to the next level and offer your course or your program to cannabis nurses. We have partnership opportunities within the organization for our standout members to offer their course on our platform and take advantage of the fact that we're a growing network of cannabis nurses from around the world, and they can leverage their presence on our audience platform to grow their audience as well. There's one thing that's kind of a fundamental, just to take an aside here, there's a really fundamental part of Cannabis Nurses Network that you'll find is unlike other nursing organizations. I personally am not a nurse, but in working with Heather for the last 6 years, I've gotten to learn a lot about it. And one of the things that she's often conveyed, and many of our members have communicated to us, is that nursing can often be a culture of eating their own, right? And that moving up the ladder is something that's difficult because the people who've been through the trenches often make it harder for the people who are coming up behind them, in the thought that if it was hard for me, it's got to be hard for you. Real talk, Cannabis Nurses Network rejects that mentality outright. Inside of our community, you will find love, acceptance, collaboration, and we're really all about rising tides lift all boats. And so you'll find that not only are we invested in making sure that you, the individual, see success on your journey, we also do as much as we can to provide opportunities for you to succeed based on the fact that you shouldn't have to work as hard as we did to get where you want to be, right? What else is in here? Let's see. We also have ongoing education. Last year, we had over 30 hours of live education. This includes webinars with experts from within, and this is all just for members. This isn't even including our education programs where we've recorded, for example, our annual conference and offer that as an accredited nursing program. This is just ongoing education that's available from the experts within our community providing live webinars, from the experts who are on our team providing webinars on professional development. We have a huge library of opportunities where whatever your passion or focus is in within cannabis medicine, whether that be post-traumatic stress disorder, whether that be nurse entrepreneurship, whether that be oncology, whatever your personal specialty is, has a place inside of this network where you can begin to learn how that Venn diagram between your specialty and cannabis nursing merges, and we have the education to support you. We also offer education program discounts. So our members have opportunity to buy our stand apart courses for more affordably than are offered to anybody else. And we do our best to offer accredited nursing contact hours so that when you need those CEUs, you've got somewhere to go, and we provide certificates of completion. Last year, we had a spring intensive where it was a full day of education series with some of our educators inside of the network. And we had some cool networking and a fun little party. We're kind of all, we're cannabis nurses. And so we're not taking the business part of it so seriously that we're not also enjoying ourselves and are a pleasurable place to be, right? We also have an annual conference. The Cannabis Nurses Network Conference happens annually. During COVID, we had it virtually. We're really hoping, fingers crossed, and looking forward to having it in person next year. So there is an opportunity for you to come and meet people in person. And right now, while the cannabis industry is having a lot of its industry conferences, we are present with a lot of CNNs, social mixers, special events. You would not believe some of the amazing things that we have inside of the membership. When it just comes to being in touch with people face to face or virtually, we offer it on every level. We're also really focused on nurse entrepreneurship. It's an important aspect of cannabis nursing just because it often requires nurses who are really ready to forge their own path. They need the support of what entrepreneurship looks like. And within the industry, it can be a little tricky. So we make sure that we have opportunities for you to advance professionally, but also to highlight your business and grow your business as well. We have a business directory on our website for our members. We offer business promotion opportunities like including your business in our virtual event expos. We offer discounts on sponsorship, and we also can be relied upon to give you the industry specific guidance that you need in order to forge your entrepreneurship journey along the way. Now, there are some additional bonuses to membership that I want to highlight for you above and beyond the empowerment, advocacy, recognition, opportunities, and important education that our membership offers, right? We also, as a member, you get right off the top a 50% discount to your tickets to CNNC. So as a member, you get a special code that gives you 50% off your annual conference tickets. And right off the top, that basically covers the cost of your membership, because ticket that saves you like $300 like right out of the gate. It's amazing. And honestly, you'll have to pop in the group and ask some people about what they thought about CNNC, because it really is an unparalleled event and we go all out, and it's very much unlike other medical conferences that you've been to in a really, really good way. The second is, and I touched on this a little bit earlier, we have 2 complete education programs to get you started the minute that you arrive. We have an introduction to medical cannabis for nurses that gets you ramped up on the endocannabinoid system basics, so that those NCSBN guidelines that we were talking about, you could literally solve understanding the endocannabinoid system pretty quickly just in this little mini course. And then we have, from our CNNC 2019, we have the entire program that we recorded there available for new members to join. This is over 10 hours of industry-leading education from some of really the most amazing authors and educators in the industry. We're talking about Yue Bleshing, who's really touched on the opioid epidemic and is a leading source of cannabis education. We have Jana Champagne, who's gone on to be an instructor at John Patrick University and lead the medical cannabis program there. We've got some really, you would not believe some of the amazing people that are in this program, and they're in our membership. So when you have questions and you want to dive deeper and you meet somebody who really hits on a topic that you love, those instructors are in our membership and you're welcome to reach out to them. We're not really about gatekeeping or keeping people apart and like, no, you've got to access, et cetera, et cetera. The people that you love and inspire you are in our network. We also have partnership discounts. So for example, Canna Keys has become a leading source for cannabis research and as a resource for going to learn about studies. So if you really want to accelerate your learning, but you want that evidence-based practice in order to make an impact, we have a partnership discount that our members get a lower price on their membership to Canna Keys, so that not only do you get the powerful benefits of the Cannabis Nurses Network, but you get access to additional resources and discounts as a result of your membership with us that help you accelerate in your career. And finally, we have a partnership with John Patrick University of Health and Applied Sciences.
Can I just take a second to say my eyes are leaking a little bit. I am so overwhelmed with gratitude. Before we came on to do this, I was just saying, please let us be a vessel for good. Let the right words come out. Please let the technology work. That's always a hit or miss. But please let the right people show up who are ready for this who are ready to get started, who are ready to help others through their plant medicine journeys. And I am so grateful that that has actually happened today. And each one of you that are here today, that you've left these beautiful messages, each one of these drops coming out of my eyes, or there's one for each of you. So I am truly humbled. I am truly grateful. And I cannot wait to get to know each one of you, to watch your journey unfold, and to be there to help empower you to get you where you want to go in the world. And I am just so thankful that you heard the calling and you are answering it. Thank you so, so, so much.